if you're attached to the internet at all, your data is already being stolen from you anyway. You might as well start selling it on your own. These DePINs allow us to put power back in the people's hands. In the grand scheme of things, the DePIN sector is so small still.
But like the software DePIN versus hardware DePIN, because there's that barrier to entry with the hardware, because there's an expense, those, in terms of passive income or rewards, tend to be higher than their software equivalents. So what are some of the top software DePINs that people should be looking at right now?
I'm not going to put my smartphone on my roof and attach it to my, to my internet. It's like, it just...
You might not, but I'm going to do that. I feel like $10 to $20 a month from a free software app you run on your phone while you just casually drive a month right now is pretty awesome, especially if, we get to a bull run, it does really well. Welcome to the Andy and Friends podcast. I'm your friend Andy, and in this episode, I'm talking to William, who is deep in the trenches of crypto DePINs. He has a DePIN podcast and is on Twitter Spaces around the clock talking all things DePIN. And this episode really is an everything you ever wanted to know about DePIN episode. We talk about what DePIN is, the opportunity here, some of his favorite projects, and which ones could be massive moneymakers in the bull run, and a ton more. So let's jump into it. And here we are on this episode with William talking all things DePIN. How you doing? Good to see you.
I'm doing good, Andy. I'm doing good. It's been a long week, but I'm happy we made it to Friday, and I'm doing great. How about yourself?
It's Friday. The weekend's here. Bitcoin is almost at $69,000.
Let's go.
As we record this. So I think that's as good a time as any to talk all things DePIN. And on that topic, let's start with this. For those who don't know what DePIN is, decentralized physical infrastructure networks, please explain it to us. Give us some examples. How do you explain this to people?
So DePINs, it's pretty interesting because you don't have to necessarily even like mention the tech or the blockchain behind it to get people to really understand it, And I've always been kind of an avid person in saying that the crypto space and crypto Twitter as well as Web3, we always have a terrible marketing problem when it comes to relaying this information to people, because then we start saying words like DePIN, RWA, blockchain, and then you start seeing the eyes roll back. You start seeing the glazed eyes, and they're like, oh my God, what's that? I don't care. I got bills to pay. I'm like, I got a family to take care of. Like, what do you mean? And so the way I describe DePIN to especially like my friends, my close friends and family and neighbors and whatnot, is essentially two ways. So I see DePIN in two different buckets. I see a data set, and as well as a service that you can provide. And so when it comes to data, I just talked to like my neighbor Zach, for instance. I just got him to download Silencio, and he's on Helium Mobile now and whatnot. And the way I kind of got him on that was, I was like, hey, listen, there's this data called noise pollution. Like it's actively being consumed and purchased, and you can take part in that, start collecting it yourself, and then you're rewarded for it. And that's all I had to say. It was like, hey, you collect said data, it is sold on your behalf, and then you're paid for it. And he just looked at me and said, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Oh my goodness, how do I get involved? I was like, well, there you go. So that's one way to do it. And then in terms of the service side, I usually it's somewhat similar, but I usually use Helium Mobile as a great example because it's a telco, it's a service. And so I would say, hey, listen, all you got to do is buy this, piece of hardware. You install it somewhere, wherever you would like, really, if you near your home, at a place of business. And you're providing cellular coverage. You're providing cell service. And in exchange, you're rewarded for that. And again, that just makes a lot of sense to people. So I kind of try to relate hey, you're providing X and you're rewarded Y. And then I don't mention blockchain at all unless they ask. And then they go, oh, wow, it makes a lot of sense. Cool. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, what's so cool about DePIN to me is the fact that like it's a new way of doing business. Once upon a time in the world of like taxis, for example, if you want to start a taxi company, you bought all the cars, you figured out, how it's all going to operate together. You hire drivers, whatever. Then Uber comes along, and an industry ripe for disruption says, let's not buy a fleet of vehicles. Let's not figure out any of that stuff. Let's just build an app and let's have everybody become our drivers through the app with their own cars, etc. And I feel like DePIN is the next evolution of that, where it expands beyond a centralized app that does all these things and puts the power in the hands of all these people who can run hardware or run an app on their phone or whatever. And they are building the network that powers this business through data or services or whatever. And we as the end users get rewarded for that. And we don't have to drive all day for Uber or something like that. We can just do it in our spare time. We do it passively, with an antenna on the side of our house. And we also get to vote in these ecosystems when they have proposals come up and they have changes in various things. We as people who take part in this network have a say, whereas maybe the Uber driver, unfortunately, doesn't. So of those kind of things I just kind of walk through, what do you think are some of the maybe parts of that resonate the most with people when you're talking to them, or what gets you the most excited? Like, walk me through some of that.
So the thing that resonates to people as well as myself is the ability to, kind of monetize your life. That's why I tell people you can monetize other aspects of your life that you weren't able to monetize before. Like in the case of Silencio, I can monetize my dog walks now. I can go walk my dog and collect noise pollution data and get paid for it. And I thought that aspect was really, it just like rung true to me. It just makes so much sense. It's like, why wouldn't I turn Nadix on when I drive? Why wouldn't I attach a demo device to my car when I drive? Or just very passive things. But at the same time, you're monetizing all these aspects of your life, like little pieces of your life that you never did before, like driving to a dinner date with my wife. It's like, I can now turn that into a money-making opportunity. Granted, it might not be millions of dollars, but it's like, it all adds up in the end. I'm still doing that action. So like, why not make money on it? And that's what really resonates with other people too. It's like, hey, I'm already doing these things. Why aren't I making money while doing them? And that's really what gets me excited.
Yeah, I love it. And you've said Silencio a few times. You're a big fan of the project. I am too. I have no association with them, but I knew, I was doing this podcast with you. I knew you're a huge fan, so I wore my hat. This was not planned, viewers, but it's just a happy coincidence.
Yeah,
one of those little things in life. So what you just said, I love it. Broadly, all this stuff is super cool. You can earn rewards for doing these various things. But I'm curious, like, if we want to get to the crypto side of things, I want to know your introduction to DePIN in general, but I also just want to know how you got involved with crypto at all in the first place.
So my journey into crypto is actually really interesting. I have known about Bitcoin and Ethereum for a long time. So let's kind of reel it back to 2016. So in 2016, I initially got heavily involved with like trading securities, like trading stocks and everything. Got really deep into finance. Like, Robinhood was really popular on my phone, and I was just like building a portfolio, and it was a lot of fun. And then like I looked at Bitcoin and I was like, what is that thing? Like, I don't really get it. Okay, I'll just look at it later. And I saw the crazy spikes it had, like the crazy returns we were getting, and then like the crazy drops. And I was like, oh my God, the thing's so volatile. Holy hell. Like, what is that thing? And then come around to 2020, 2021, 2020 when COVID hit. And everything kind of went haywire. The markets all tanked, and then all this money printing started, and then inflation started just roaring, shortly after that. And I was thinking to myself, like, why? How do I get out of this mess? And then, like, I kind of looked at Bitcoin, and I was like, that seems like a viable option. But I didn't even buy it then. I was still just considering buying it. But around this time too, I had been streaming on Twitch a lot. I've been doing content creation for gaming. I'm a really big gamer. Right behind me, I have a signed Master Chief picture from Steve Downs himself. Incredible. But I've been really big into gaming, and I still am to a degree. And I had been streaming a lot on Twitch, so I made a lot of friends and built a community on Twitch. And I had a friend of mine who was a musician, and she streamed her music, Mellowbee, on Twitch, and had a decent audience, decent following. But then one day I was watching her stream, and a gentleman by the name of Kobe from the Up Only podcast, he rated her Twitch, her stream, with all of his viewers. He had like 6,000 followers or viewers at the time. And they rate her stream. She's freaking out. She's like, what is this? Like, who are you people? And they're all telling her to download MetaMask in like the chat. And I'm like thinking to myself, what's MetaMask? Like, what is all this stuff? She downloads the app, and then they end up gifting her $250,000 in one night. Yeah. In one night, she played music all night long for them, like live music, and they ended up giving her about 250 grand worth of crypto in her MetaMask. And I thought that was just such a beautiful thing. And I was like, man, what is this crypto thing? Like, I have to find out what this is. This is amazing. And that's kind of like how I got my first start. I got really heavily involved with NFTs, buying lots of Bitcoin, Ethereum, Web3 gaming, of course. And then I eventually discovered RWAs and DPINs. I saw Larry Fink from BlackRock talking about tokenizing everything, and the light bulb really just clicked. It turned on in my head. I was like, oh my God, this all makes so much sense. Like, this is the future. Everything's gonna be tokenized. And then I started, doing my research and looking into DPINs, and here we are today.
I love it. That's super cool. Yeah, I think, if I were a musician and I got paid $250,000 in crypto, I would also play all night, take all the requests. Thank you very much. Okay, that's cool. I didn't know about the Twitch background or the gaming background. So that's a new, because I know you also have the podcast DePIN Daily.
Yes,
right?
DePIN Daily podcast. Yep.
Yeah, so now you just got to get Steve Downs to come on the podcast and do Master Chief voice. I would love and, that. The whole thing. That would be amazing.
Oh, dude, that'd be so cool.
What games are you playing right now?
Right now, of course, I'm playing Off the Grid because Off the Grid has just been popping off. But I'm actually playing a lot of RPGs as well. I was a big Kingdom Hearts, Final Fantasy guy back in the day, and so I'm playing Metaphor ReFantazio just came out, and that has just stolen all my time. My wife is terribly mad at me every day. She's just like, she walks in the house from work and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Nothing." And she's like, "You're on PlayStation again, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So I'm playing those two right now primarily.
Okay, very cool. And now that's your intro to crypto. Now walk me through, what was your first exposure to DePIN? Like what was the thing that caught your eye and that kind of put you down the rabbit hole of DePIN?
Honestly, it was Silencia. Silencia was the initial kind of, again, light bulb moment for me when it came to DePIN. It was just like, hey, there's this data, noise pollution data. It's somewhere in the billions of dollars globally valued at in the I forget that it's like $1 to $3 billion maybe. And you can tap into that and you can generate revenue from that data. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. Perfect. And that's kind of how I fell into the rabbit hole.
Yeah. So I'm sure you've been asked this a lot. I have my own answer for this, but I'm curious how you respond to people on this topic. Lots of DePINs are centered around data and taking the data, you have, and you're sharing it with a company, a crypto project or whatever, and then they can turn around and they can sell that. People can buy that. They transact. This is where the money is. Data is the new oil.
Yes.
So, some people are leery about, I'm going to put this app on my phone, or I'm going to plug this device in my car. I'm going to plug this thing into my network at home, and it's going to share all this data with this company. I don't want to do that, right? What do you say to those people?
I say if you have a smartphone, if you're attached to the internet at all, your data is already being stolen from you anyway. Like you might as well start selling it on your own, because if you have a smartphone, if you have an iPhone, if you're using Google Maps, this data is already being taken from you one way or the other. And it's just cool that these DePINs allow us to kind of put power back in the people's hands. I always told, one of my friends recently, they just got the Progressive little device for their car. They're like, "Oh, I'm trying to save money on my insurance." And I'm like, dude, just get a demo device. What are you talking about? Like, save money on your insurance, get some demo tokens, save it. Like that's what they're doing. So it makes too much sense to me not to do it if it's already happening to me anyway. If I had the choice, if I was living off the grid, not to say a pun, but if I was living off the grid and not playing video games and not connected to the internet, maybe I wouldn't want to do that, but I have an online presence. I have social media accounts. I have smartphones. I know this data is already being taken from me. So time to take it back,
Yeah, I fully agree. Especially with your car or your phone or computer software, all these things that we're using all the time. This data is being taken. When you buy the thing, you're basically agreeing to let them, utilize this data any which way they want. I made a video about Demo recently, and there was a news article in the past few months about this guy who was driving his Toyota. It suddenly caught fire. He pulled over. The car burned up.
Oh my God.
He got it towed away. Yeah, super scary. Yeah. Got towed away. They figured out it was like a manufacturing defect. So his insurance covered most of it, but then he reached out to Toyota, like, "Hey, you got a warranty, cover this thing." And they went back and they looked at his data that the car had been sending home, which almost all modern cars send data home, whether you realize it or not. And they had seen that on more than one occasion, he had exceeded 80 miles per hour. This is totally unrelated to the car catching fire, to having an accident, completely unrelated.
Yeah.
And they said, because you've had a reckless driving history, we're not covering you under warranty. Sorry, good luck on your journey. Totally true story, and that's one of many examples of where this data is not ours. It's being taken from us no matter what. So we need to work on stopping that. It's a separate problem, but at the very least, the data we are knowingly collected through these various things, we can control who it gets sold to or why or anything like that, and then get rewarded for it and at least get something back in return, which I think is really attractive and really powerful, and hopefully something that people get super excited about.
No, same. And I mean, like, it's like you hit the nail on the head, just like it's already being taken from you anyway. It sucks. I would like that not to happen, but you're agreeing to that when you're using these quote free apps. Like in the last video I made, I talked about, Google and Apple are taking all this data from you. Why? Because they can. Like it's the terms and service you sign, which to be fair, like, you're getting a solid, like kind of a solid deal, right? You're getting to use this crazy application and you're getting all this data taken from you, which, you don't have any control over how it's taken or how it's sold or how it's, utilized, but they're giving you a service in exchange. Like Google provides all this stuff for you. So it's like you're almost like kind of put in the back of your head, I guess I'm okay with this. Like I have Google Maps, I have my Gmail, I have all this stuff. I'm not paying any money for it. Like I guess I'm fine with them stealing all my search history, which, hopefully my wife doesn't find, but Google has it all.
Right. Well, I mean, the saying I've heard a million times is true, and that is if the product is free, well, then you are the product. Like that's how they make that. They have to like make money somehow. And if it's a free thing they're giving away, well, then they're utilizing whatever they can from you, gleaning whatever they can from you, and then turning around and doing something with that to monetize. And it's all your data, unfortunately.
Yeah. And like Google Maps makes billions of dollars, so it's almost just like how, like, I don't pay for Google Maps. It's like they're using your data. Like they're selling all of that data they're collecting and selling it to consumers, like selling it to data consumers, which now, things like Hivemapper and Nadix are taking advantage of.
Yep. Yeah, I love that there's some other people in this space that are trying to compete with the big players. Now, I mean, it feels a little bit like an insurmountable, like final boss that you can't actually defeat. But even if there can be like carved a small slice of that pie away from them, and you're electing into that slice of the pie being, pulled away from them, that feels pretty powerful to me. That maybe that's the start of something bigger. I don't know.
Yeah, like I actually talked to Karam from Daba Network about this, and the way that he described it was he was like, "Oh, with DePINs, we now have a weapon that we're capable of, standing up to these tech monopolies. Because before, if you wanted to start your own tech firm, like especially now, if you want to start your own tech company, good luck. Like it's tough. Like it's very tough. You have really steep competition, and you're probably just going to get consumed by the giants. Like they're either going to buy you out or they're going to shut you down." Whereas with DePIN, you can now bootstrap. You can bootstrap and incentivize other people to kind of uplift your company for you. And now you can stand up to these giants that are, Google, Apple, Accenture, all these giant tech firms that just have so much control, so much power. You now have like some way of having equal footing with them.
Yeah, and I think there's even another option that we haven't really talked about, which is just if you don't, let's say you don't even care about DePIN, you don't want to utilize DePIN to build your new company, just having companies out there who are DePIN companies, pulling all this data, collecting all this data. Now you have another alternative to the Googles, the Bings, whoever
free market.
And oftentimes DePIN data is significantly cheaper, and it's a lot of the same data. It's only going to get more robust and hopefully more competitive. So you're a startup, and there's so many companies that when they build their software, they rely on these data streams from the big players, and that's super expensive. So you got to have like high monthly fees and various things. It's real cutthroat trying to start your company. Now there's an alternative. It's it's in its early days, but it's getting bigger and better and more robust over time. But that's got to be pretty exciting too, just from a business starting standpoint. If you have no care about crypto or DePIN or starting it, just having another data alternative, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, no, exactly. And it incentivizes again the tech giants to have the price competition. So like they don't have a monopoly on the prices of these APIs or the a la carte data now. So they can't just jack the prices up whenever they want, and you're just stuck with them. And then two, you're going to have, like you said, more robust data coming in. It's just going to get better and better and better, especially with, I think you and I talked about this on the space a bit ago, where with DePINs, you can just collect so much more of the same data and sell it for way cheaper that it almost it's a no-brainer just going to the DePINs and saying this is like a default data collection method now, eventually down the road. And, you know, right now, Google's still paying tons of money for their giant camera car to drive around, when they're going to look at Hivemapper, when Hivemapper just gets much larger and their map just gets like just kind of ever increasing, more and more, you know, more and more image data coming in. They're going to look over at them and say, this makes way too much sense. Like, we have to use their data now.
Yeah, I mean the Google like mapping car is a great example too, because what that thing's got to cost 50 to 80 grand or more to, you know, get one of those on the road and running.
I think it's $300,000 actually. 300 to 400,000. $300 to $400,000, I believe, because the cameras are really like, they're high def cameras, and they're like, it's a 360 camera, and they have to pay the person as well to drive it. So yeah, it's a lot.
I was giving them way too much of a benefit of the doubt there with my estimate. Okay, so $300,000, and then along comes someone like Hivemapper, who, now granted, the camera quality is not going to be, you know, analogous to it perfectly yet. We'll get there.
Yeah, but
it's a $300 camera you put in your car, and the advantage there is, instead of thousands across the entire nation of these Google cars, you know, if that, you have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of cars driving constantly. And, you know, the Google car, how often does it go by your house? And, you know, when was last updated? Sometimes it's like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, Hivemapper, you have thousands of people driving around every single day in the same areas. You get like up to the minute, up to the day. It's just, you have a much more vibrant like data set, which is another really fascinating part of all this.
That's what makes it more valuable too. It's dynamic. It's constantly updated. It's refreshed consistently, like we just said. And so people are going to look to that and say, why would I choose your 4-year-old photo of my business when I have this current one? You know, like I look at stuff like, you know, my old houses I used to live at. I used to, like, back in my college days, and there's still pictures on Google Maps of my car parked there, and that was like 8 years ago. I'm just like, dude, come on.
Yeah. Get with the come on, Google, get my private data quicker.
Exactly.
You guys.
What are you doing? Drive by my house. Come on.
So this is a lot of great reasons to pay attention to the DePIN space, but is there anything we haven't talked about in this broader topic of why people should be like paying attention to this? Like why it's, you know, it's not currently on the radars, but maybe it should be?
Aside from the passive revenue generation we talked about, as well as, you know, in some cases active revenue generation, I would think just opportunity. Like, it's, in the grand scheme of things, the DePIN sector is so small still. Like, in the larger mass scale of things, like crypto itself is still very small compared to the entire financial markets of the world. You know, it's still very, very tiny. So the fact that that's the case, and you have like these, you know, 500 billion, $1 trillion industries, like data industries, that are being tapped into by these DePINs who have like $50 million market caps, it's kind of a no-brainer. You know, like I made a tweet recently, and it was I shouted out Hivemapper and Nadix, and I said, hey guys, like Hivemapper, like $300 million market cap, Nadix, $80 million market cap. Geospatial data, global geospatial data, $380 billion. And I was just like, do the math. I was just like it's just insane. It's the opportunity there is just wild, especially even if they only take 25% of the market, you know, that's still a crazy return on your initial investment.
I'm looking at right now. I always like to check and see where we currently stand, but the entire, as tracked by CoinGecko at least, the entire DePIN market capitalization. So it's all the DePIN projects they currently track, which is, you know, not actually all of them, but a pretty good chunk. It's $23 billion in market capitalization for all of them. Hundreds of crypto DePIN companies. And Google is $2 trillion, one company in capitalization. So I will echo that. I think the opportunity beyond just like the passive earnings, passive income's cool.
Yeah.
Just the opportunity of being this early into something that is totally like an emerging market. That's kind of a wild like proposition.
Yeah, exactly. And I hate saying that too. It almost sounds so cliche and cheesy. We're early, guys. We're so early, but it's so true. Like I hate saying it, but I'm like, guys, we're still so early. You have no idea.
Yes. I mean, I think the entire market capitalization of all of crypto is still smaller than Microsoft. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's like undeniable that if this whole money slash business slash data slash everything else experiment that we're all doing right now in the world of crypto gets any true meaningful like adoption worldwide, globally, there's just so much like space there, so much room to grow, so much room to get those 1000x's.
Yeah, and even with Bitcoin, there's still so much opportunity with Bitcoin even, and that's the largest crypto out there. Like I see Bitcoin easily, 10, 20xing down the road. Like it's still such an infant in the eyes of the financial world.
So what is, let's talk more broadly about the opportunity, because that is, I mean, obviously I'm, a big crypto person. I spend every
I would
day
never
of my
guess.
waking life going through this waking dream of mine as crypto. So I live in and breathe it, but a lot of people don't do that. So I obviously am looking for this opportunity. I want, make these investments. I live and breathe it. But for other people, what is the opportunity here? Is it the passive income element? Is it getting in early? Is it just being aware of this space? Is it starting, doing what you're doing or what I'm doing, making content about these things? Like where are some of the places of opportunity that people should be looking at?
Honestly, it aside from all of those, I would say like thinking about starting your own business as a deployer. That's another opportunity, like being able to create new types of business models based on just being a DePIN deployer. Like aside from you, I know that you have, some deployments out there, especially with Bitcoin miners and everything. But I have a bunch of friends who are, they have massive demo fleets. Like they purchase tons of demo devices and they gift them for free in exchange for the revenue share. And that's their business model, and they're making really good money doing that. And so I feel like it's just with DePINs, you're going to see a lot of stuff change in the future. Aside from data collection and aside from being able to start these new businesses, you're going to see the world as we know it change in terms of all the services that are offered, how value is exchanged between people. I feel like, especially with crypto in general, you're going to see lots of change in that area. Like you're not going to see the standard, oh, like I have Cash App or I have Venmo now. It's like, hey, why don't you just give me your wallet address? I have a Phantom wallet. Let's just send money that way. It's cheaper and quicker. Like we're already seeing that with crypto. That's been the kind of status quo for a while now, but it's going to get like that, but much further beyond in the sense of, where you have the passive revenue, like we talked about, these new businesses that are being developed. And there's a lot of opportunity. It's in my mind, DePIN encompasses everything. Same thing with RWAs, real world assets. Money itself will change. Everything's going to change. Like the way value goes from one person to the other, essentially, is like how I view it in my head, at least. It makes sense to me.
It makes sense to me. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid too. You're super immersed in the world of DePIN. So on that, what you just said, that opportunity of like, start a business, utilize these networks, or utilize the data at least or something. I'm curious, are there any places right now where you see you're like, man, this type of business would be a great use for DePIN? Or is there a space within that? Maybe there's a couple projects, but no one's really like cracked that nut yet. Like, is there opportunity for a business to be started that you can see right now?
Honestly, it's kind of weird, but I'm actually talking to my local city government right now. How governments don't really like make any money, like they just take all the money. I like thought about this. I was like, wait a minute, they have to provide cell phone plans to their employees, and so why not make that a free cell phone plan with Helium Mobile and set up some Helium Mobile miners across the city that you can either outsource the maintenance or maintain yourself, and still you're going to be paying money for that, but I feel like in the end, the savings will outweigh what you're paying for via all your employees, getting all that mapping, mobile token data, as well as the revenue generated from those mobile miners. So I feel like it could be an extra revenue source for things like governments even. And it's a win-win situation too, because you have the residents getting better cell service, better cell coverage, faster data, and these governments actually saving taxpayer dollars by implementing these miners.
Man, that'd be pretty cool. Let's get,
they're interested. They're interested. They're just like, wait a minute, we don't know about this.
On one hand, I'm like, oh, that's super cool. Let's do that. And the other hand, I'm like, oh no, here come the governments. Let's see how this goes.
I'm the same way. I'm just like, wait a minute.
So let's start talking about some of that. You just mentioned like some more hardware. We've talked about some software, various things. There's two categories of DePIN. I mean, there's a lot of categories, but broadly, what we talked about in the past, I'm talking about my channel. We talked about in Spaces. You talked about on the podcast. Software DePINs, traditionally like something you install on your phone, but also could be like a browser extension or something you run on your computer. But then also hardware DePINs. That's ones we just talked about. Helium Mobile, Demo, Hive Mapper, GeoDNet. You take your pick. So I'm curious, what do you see as some of the pros and some of the cons of each of those? Is there a better of the two approaches? Is it just like, situation specific? Talk me through that.
It's definitely situation specific because I see the need for both of them. Whereas, like, when it comes to data like geospatial data, you might not necessarily need a hardware device for that, because the smartphone one is just getting increasingly better every year. It's getting more sophisticated. The sensors on it are getting much more like I guess the quality of those sensors are getting more improved over time. They're not getting worse, So essentially, the smartphone itself is one of the greatest IoT devices out there. So I could see that being, that's one of the main catalysts for software DePINs to adopt the smartphone and say, wow, this thing is just going to collect a bunch of data, and it's going to be high quality data thanks to how great these phones are now. Whereas I'm not, when it comes to things like GeoDNet, collecting, kind of creating an RTK network, improving GPS data. I'm not going to put my smartphone on my roof and attach it to my, to my internet. It's like, it just,
you might not, but I'm going to do that.
Well, exactly. But that's definitely more of a hardware specific DePIN that you need a specific device for that to work. And so I feel like there's a place for both. The challenges are definitely when it comes to hardware DePINs, you have that initial cost. And so the upfront cost of buying the hardware yourself, because again, in a DePIN, it's all a bootstrap network. You're passing a lot of the costs on of, starting this business to the end users who are going to benefit from that. And so some people might say, okay, well, that's too expensive, I can't do that. Some people might just be wary of like buying this device and again, plugging into their car and saying, this is just too much work. I don't know. So those are definitely some of the frictions when it comes to hardware DePINs. But the pros there are that it collects a specific type of data. It's built for that data. And so the data that it collects could be of higher quality in that sense. Whereas like I kind of compare this to Nadix and Hive Mapper. Nadix is a software-based DePIN. It collects mapping data as well, just like Hive Mapper. But the way Nadix tweaked it, because the camera qualities aren't as good on the smartphones yet, as say like the Hive Mapper camera. They're more so they're less collecting mapping data and more so training AI models and collecting like traffic data. They're more focused on like, oh, is that a stop sign? Oh, is that a car in front of you? Oh, is that a pothole on the road? As opposed to mapping and like getting the image data. Whereas Hive Mapper is more focused on the image data entirely because they're generating that global map. And so I feel like both have a place, but like Nadix itself has, the pros of the software DePINs are that there's less friction there. Like I can just download it on my smartphone, start earning immediately. I don't have to buy anything. There's no initial cost to get in. And I just start, I plug and play essentially. So I see that as being a pro, obviously for the software DePINs, but a con for them would be that you might not be collecting as high quality of data that you think you are. When it comes to using the smartphones, just because they might not be, like I talked about before, how smartphones are getting increasingly better. They might not be where they need to be yet in terms of like being the go-to factor of collecting that type of data.
Yeah. Yes. I feel like the smartphone angle, it's way easier in terms of deployment because everybody already has one. You don't have to get hardware into the people's hands, but it's also a pretty big grab bag because like phones are not standardized across,
Exactly.
Some people have, 10-year-old smartphones or even modern day ones. There's the cheap ones and their camera's not as good. Somebody might have a cracked camera or blurry camera, or their microphone's just not picking, there's, that's got to be quite a challenge to like sort through that type of stuff and
exactly
and get the quality. So I feel like my gut reaction with a lot of this stuff, and I feel like my actual experience has reflected this, but like the software DePIN versus hardware DePIN, I feel like because there's that barrier to entry with the hardware, because there's an expense, because there's some barrier to entry of like getting it set up, it's standardized, maybe it's, again, generalizing here, but maybe higher quality data or more specific quality of data. Those, in terms of passive income or rewards, tend to be higher than their software equivalents. I feel like that's been my experience. Is that true, or are there any
Yeah,
exceptions to that?
I have noticed that on my end as well. I mean, the only exception to that would be like maybe the GPU DPINs, just because it depends on which GPU DPIN is, generating the most revenue in that sense. So like right now I'm running like three different ones, and one of them is generating more revenue than the other two. And it's great and all, but I did have to pay an upfront node cost for that. I purchased a node for that. So there was that initial investment into doing that. The other two, however, I didn't put any upfront cost to, and I'm generating less revenue for that. So the correlation there, I'm not entirely sure on the GPU side and just specifically with those three as the example. But in the case of the one I'm talking about, which is Aether, I have been generating a decent amount of revenue for my investment into it, as compared to obviously we don't know about Silencio yet. The token's not out. We'll certainly see when it comes to that. But in terms of like Nadix, for instance, I'm not generating nearly as much revenue doing Nadix as I would be if I purchased a Hive Mapper camera and started mapping with Hive Mapper.
Yep. Aside from Aether, what are the other two GPU ones you're running?
So Koi Network, I have that one. That they're not in mainnet yet, but just estimating on the token value, it's not nearly the amount as much as like let's say Aether's paying me. And then the other one is oh my god, what's it? Gaiman. I'm doing Gaiman as well. And that one honestly is very GPU intensive compared to the other two. It actually makes my GPU run at 100% capacity, and the revenue hasn't been as much as Aether yet. So we'll see if I keep it around.
Nice. So okay, I want to break down to some actual specific examples of some of these things. And since you look at a great swath of the DPINs, I would love to get some thoughts here from you. So what are some of the top software DPINs that people should be looking at right now?
So aside from Silencio being the number one, I feel like the one I'm really bullish on has to be Nadix Network, like we talked about kind of ad nauseum so far. They have a really good use case for why they're doing it on smartphones. And I feel like there's just going to be a ton of value that accrues to that specific token, that specific protocol, as well as the opportunity there being. So it's like an $80 million market cap, $90 million market cap. It's not that much, it's still very early. So I just feel like once they start actually selling the data, which I think they're doing pretty soon, as far as I know, they haven't sold any yet, but they're going to, I think this month or next. Once those sales start coming in and the revenue starts coming in, I feel like we're going to see the token start appreciating in value more, and then obviously your earnings will go up because of that. So that's definitely yeah. What's up?
And with Nadix, I know that they had their TGE, their tokens out there. What can someone expect if they're going to run Nadix starting now? And earnings wise, I'm earning, and I'm not an Uber driver by any means. I drive very casually. I drive like maybe. I'm trying to think. I live in Tallahassee, so I drive to Jacksonville, Florida about once a month to see some family, and that's about a 2.5 hour drive on I-10. So I do that about once a month. That's a good chunk of miles. And that combined with my daily travels, just going to see my wife or going out to dinner or just like kind of living my life, I'm earning about anywhere from $10 to $20 a month. Just really depends. So in my mind, that's like, oh, I'm subsidizing my gasoline. Cool. But that's still with that one long trip that I'm doing. Whereas I know people that are like truck drivers for a living are making way more. I have a buddy of mine who's a truck driver. He does Hive Mapper, Mapmetrics, Nadix. He does all of them. And he's like one of the top earners globally. Like he's like the top 10, I'm pretty sure. And he's getting a lot more revenue from that. So maybe down the road, they'll adjust the token rewards just to kind of maybe share some more of those rewards with a little guy like me. But currently just casual driving, $10 to $20 a month in token rewards. I feel like $10 to $20 a month from a free like software app you run on your phone while you just casually drive a month right now is pretty awesome, especially if we get to a bull run, it does really well. It does a 5x, a 10x on the token price. You keep all the tokens you're getting now. Like, I mean, that seemed like a total no-brainer to me. With Silencio, I know there's been a document released on Medium about like upcoming TGE and stuff. Do you have any insight to what people can expect there? Like, is it too late to start doing collecting? Should you jump in now? Like, what?
It's honestly better now than it was before. They changed their reward structure with the recent app update. So I just released a video kind of covering all of this. And I believe what is the total amount of tokens coming out are 100 billion, I believe. And they're doing 5 billion for the airdrop. So you can still participate in the airdrop. It's not out yet. Peak mainnet has not come out yet. But the reward structure is very unique in that they are kind of benefiting people who go out and explore more than they did before. So like if you're getting undiscovered hexes, you get one, they're not called noise coins anymore, in-app coins. You're getting one in-app coin as opposed to 0.5. And then with venue check-ins, if you're the first person checking into that venue and discovering it, you get 100 coins. As opposed to just the standard 20. And so they kind of upped all the rewards. They also added ads to the app. So you can watch advertisements to amplify your rewards, as well as earn way more tokens, which I thought was kind of insane. But then I kind of thought about it. I was like, wait a minute, this is actually beautiful. I was like, because it's an optional thing. You don't have to watch the ads if you don't want to. But if you watch the ads, you're generating more revenue for the protocol, and they're passing that on to you via these in-app coins. So honestly, now downloading the app right now is probably the best time to get in with Silencio and just start grinding.
Very cool. Yeah, so I've talked about it and I've shared about it on my channel and stuff. So I've racked up quite a few referrals, but admittedly, I haven't done a ton of in-app stuff. I've done a little bit here and there, but I did recently do a check-in at a venue that had never been checked in before, and I was really surprised to see how much I got for my venue check-in. So I'm like, maybe I'll do some more of this around town.
And they upped the referrals, Andy. They upped the referrals to 20%. So now you're getting a crazy airdrop because you've just been referring everyone.
I moved really far up the list, maybe way farther than I should have. I don't know, but it was a very surprising thing to wake up to.
Yeah.
Okay, so those two are awesome. What else?
The other one I'm really, really keen on, which is it's a software, but like it's a hardware DePIN, but you're not managing the hardware at all. Is DABA Network, which we referenced earlier in the podcast. Essentially, what they're doing is they're spreading internet connectivity throughout India because India does have bandwidth problems. There's lack of internet connectivity out there with a lot more consumers needing it. And so they're bootstrapping it by saying, hey, buy these Wi-Fi routers. We'll set them up at local internet operators. They'll manage the whole thing for you. They'll take a share of your tokens. They'll take a share of your revenue for managing the device. And then you just passively make income that way. So you don't even have to touch anything. You just go on the app. You say, hey, I want to have this guy manage my device at this location. And this guy will maintenance it. And I'll pay them this much of the split. And then you set it and forget it. So I kind of equate that more to a software DePIN just because you're not seeing any piece of hardware whatsoever. And I love that. So it's just like you talk about passive income on your channel all the time. It's completely passive. I love it. Like you're just going on your computer, managing it a couple times and saying, okay, that looks good. Thank you. Thank you for the tokens.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of DABA. After this episode comes out, so if you're listening to my voice, after this one should be a podcast episode with the CEO of DABA. I love what they're doing. I've chatted with the team a bunch of times. I'm doing some advising for them. They've been doing this for a while now. They have a background in logistics and operation. They're literally building like ISPs and infrastructure in India. And I love that, there's so much value to DePIN being global, but I love seeing that they're laser focused on just India right now because it's massive. There's tons of people. There's a huge opportunity just for that, but they're really focused there to get that right and figure it all out. They're doing like point-to-point line of sight lasers for communication.
Yeah,
kinds of
I
crazy
saw that
stuff.
too. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, just to get around, challenges because it's expensive and really tough to lay new fiber, but you can put self-aligning lasers on the top of rooftops and get still 10 gigabit connection point to point and stuff and send internet across. So
lasers,
lasers. So I'm a big fan of that one. I'm really excited to talk more about DABA. Cool. So those are your ones you're excited about. I did want to share one or two to add to the list for anybody who's listening. I don't know if you've looked into Gradient.
I have. Yeah, I know
Yeah,
very
so
little about it, so please explain it to me. I know very little.
well, I also know very little about it, other than it's basically grass, but compute instead of AI directly. So that one's like a browser extension. I'm just learning about that one, so I haven't quite started talking about that one yet. And another one I'm really interested in that I believe that the airdrop is happening this before the end of the year, this quarter, is Accurast, which is running kind of cloud infrastructure, but on mobile phones, which is super cool. I don't know if you've encountered that one.
I have not encountered it. I know of it. I have a log of DePINs in my Notion that I'm like taking notes on, and I haven't gotten to it yet, but I'm getting to it. It's a one-man operation over here.
I love it. I love it. So let's transition from the software ones to the hardware ones. What are some top hardware DePINs that you're excited about, and or that are still not too late for someone to just get into for the first time?
Yeah, I mean, so we talked about Helium Mobile before. I think that is still relatively early. To not sound cliche again, it's just getting ramped up, just getting started. Like they're really good with their marketing. They're excellent at getting attention, which I love. But the hardware is it's not that expensive. It's not that hard to set up. And it's a common need that everyone needs, like everyone needs cellular service. And I know there's tons of areas around my town that, like, for instance, like Tallahassee, Florida, we have lots of decent infrastructure in downtown, but on the outskirts, I might have like one bar, and it's like really terrible cell data. Whereas if someone just had their internet connection tied to this device, I could get my full 5G coverage, and I love that. So that one just makes a lot of sense to me. I think it's still very early, easy to get in. The app itself, the manager app for managing your hotspots is really nice. So that one, as well as, sorry, what's up?
On Helium, what would you do right now if you were wanting to get involved in Helium? Would you just buy like one of their standard Wi-Fi, like outdoor hotspots, and throw it on the side of your house, or how would you start with that one?
If I were you, I'd probably start with the indoor one, just because the carrier offload data, I heard the rewards are much higher on it. I don't personally have any yet. I have a couple on back order right now that I'm waiting to get. But my good friends that have a lot of Helium mobile miners deployed, they say that the indoor one is easier to set up, easier to maintenance, as well as you get higher rewards via the carrier offload. Which, if no one knows what carrier offload is, it's essentially if you have AT&T or Verizon or T-Mobile, sometimes your cell service will just automatically like kind of hijack like the Helium hotspot. It'll just like attach itself to it and offload some of the data that you're using to that hotspot, and in exchange the person who's running that hotspot gets rewards because now you're saving the cell tower that's like way off in the distance some hassle. You're saving them some bandwidth, and the cell companies love that. AT&T, it's cheaper to use a Helium mobile hotspot for them than it is for you to use their cell tower, so they want you to offload their data to the hotspots. So the indoor ones I heard are getting higher rewards for that. But also, again, just easier to set up, kind of easier to maintenance. If you are in an area like where you have access to like streets, like street views, like in like a city area, the outdoor ones do fare very well. If you can like put them on a pole somewhere, the installation does get a little tricky with those. That's why I kind of veer away from them, because with the indoor ones, you're just putting it on a wall and hooking up to the internet and calling it a day. Whereas with the outdoor ones, you're like climbing up ladders and like getting on poles and whatnot, going on rooftops, and it gets a little tricky, right? So that one, as well as the one you talked about, GeoNet. GeoNet's another one I'm looking at, just because I haven't ordered one yet, but I know that they are one of the not, I wouldn't say few, but they are one of the top. They have one of the top revenue like earning models for DePINs right now. I know Masari Crypto just made a report about them. I think there were like 2 or 3 out of like the list of 10 they posted, where it had like X amount of dollars in revenue for that. So GeoNet's definitely one I would consider getting into. You're still very early with that too, because RTK like it's so needed. Like you have automatic cars driving on the road. Why wouldn't you want more accurate GPS data like that? If I have like an automatic lawnmower cutting my grass, I want it to be perfect and concise, not like this mess over here. And GeoNet's, yeah. Sorry,
10 feet of accuracy with a lawnmower. Maybe we go down to the centimeter accuracy. That sounds better.
Well,
Man,
exactly.
I am such a fan of GeoNet. The hotspot at your house, the node, effectively the miner, whatever you want to call it, $700. And the thing is still right now, depending on how your connection is and how many are in your hex or whatever, can earn between $100 to $150 a month. on a $700 device. And I think GeoNet is grossly undervalued in terms of like market cap size. So if you just hold all your tokens, do whatever you want, sell every day, you do you. I'm keeping all my tokens for the bull run because I think that value is going to be seen and captured and it's going to go up in price. It just seems like such a no-brainer if you're willing to climb on your roof or whatever and put that, the hotspot antenna up there and like make sure it's correctly positioned, because you have to keep in mind trees and poles and walls and stuff. But if you can do all that, man, for $700 device, like it's crazy.
It's a no-brainer. It's really a no-brainer. And like I'm going to be purchasing one of those hopefully in the near future. But I also just got my Wayru hotspot today. My OG Genesis one that you talked about in a recent video.
Sweet.
It's thanks to your video that I knew that was coming out. So thank you for that, and thank you for the code and the discount. I used your code.
Happy to help.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for helping me. So I got that. I'm going to be setting that up pretty soon. I think Wayru has a very neat concept. I really am hoping it plays out accordingly. But I do know that Wi-Fi connectivity, while it is plentiful out there, public Wi-Fi is not. Like any Joe Schmo who's like walking down the street of like a busy downtown area, if they want to connect to some Wi-Fi, they got to like go to McDonald's, and I don't want to go to McDonald's. I just want to walk about and maybe connect to a Wi-Fi at, some other place. And so I think Wayru is going to really help out with that. So that's definitely one to keep an eye on for sure. Definitely a lot more on the speculative side as compared to something like GeoNet, which is kind of proving itself currently. But in terms of that, the other hardware ones I would say, honestly, like Hivemapper's just getting started. Like that's a great one, a really good starter one to get into, especially if you're an Uber driver, especially if you're driving a lot. I think you need to have a Hivemapper device in your car. You should be running Nadix and Hivemapper at the same time, like because then you're just doubling up on the rewards. You're doing a good service. You're getting that high quality mapping data and training AI models. And you're getting rewarded for it. So I think Hivemapper's a no-brainer, obviously. So those are the ones I would say initially. I like Wingbits a lot. Wingbits is tough because it's, as far as I know, I haven't set my antenna up. I never ever like purchased it, never got an antenna. But I was thinking about doing it, but then I looked into it initially, and it seemed really complex at first. I was like, wait a minute, like what normal person's gonna buy this and like set this up? Like I have to like follow instructions and buy like 5 different devices. Like I don't understand. So I was waiting for them to kind of like streamline that process and simplify it a bit before I got involved. But I am an avid supporter of what they're doing because I know the market's there. So I'm waiting for it to be a bit more streamlined. But yeah, definitely look into Wingbits as well. Those are most of the hardware ones I would start shilling here. There's plenty more for sure, but I don't want to take up the entire podcast talking about all the hardware devices of all the DePINs out there.
No, I love it. People want to hear all the things to.
We'd be here for like 4 hours, yeah. Andy. Come on.
Wingbits is on my radar. I don't run Wingbits yet. We've been talking about it in my private membership Sleep Money Club. A lot of the members in the club are running it. I'm not yet. But I did see the new ones that they kind of partner with Hynix, who also do the GeoNet ones. So they've got maybe a slightly more put together packaged one. It's all ready to go instead of doing the DIY method. But yeah, flight data seems like tracking data seems like that has quite the marketplace fit. But on the topic of like the Uber driver, if you're driving a lot, if you're doing Uber delivery or just to from work a lot, throw Demo in the mix.
Yes,
100
Demo.
If you use a discount like one I have, it's like $150 device, and it still earns a decent amount every month, which hopefully, again, like most of these, will go up as the bull run approaches, as these companies become more valuable, as people see the value of this data. And it's just another thing. It's literally passive because you plug it in your car and then that's the last time you ever think about it.
Yeah, and awesome. To go a step further on Demo too, you don't even have to buy it. Just go to a deployer, like one of my friends. Granted they take a portion of your revenue, but that's something you can negotiate down the road, and you can start getting kickbacks for referring more people, and they'll give you more revenue share for that. So you could be like me, where I didn't buy my Demo devices. I went to my buddy Suburban Crypto. Shout out you, Suburban Crypto. Freaking love you, man. He got me and my wife Demo devices, and he takes a portion of our revenue, and now it's completely passive income. I didn't spend a penny on it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I love that. Or if you are like me and you have a smart kind of car that doesn't even have a diagnostic
Yep.
part, if you port, if you're like you have a Tesla or some other car, you can just install the app. Now the rewards aren't as high as the hardware device, but it's free. You don't do anything, and it's hands off. Like after that, you didn't make that connection, which is pretty rad.
Yeah.
Uh, so, what about any upcoming DPINs that have not launched yet that you're kind of anticipating, you're excited about, you're looking to be a part of?
Honestly, there's two in particular I really want to talk about. One of them, they're both on Peak Network. One of them is Ex Machina. The other one is FarmScent. I don't know if you heard about FarmScent before, but Ex Machina is essentially, it's kind of like a DePIN RWA like hybrid. So the way it is, the way they're advertising themselves is they are a decentralized like robo cafe. So you have like a bunch of little AI robots, like automated robots serving coffee essentially. And the way it works is that you, as the investor, like you purchase a piece of that robot's revenue, and in exchange, like they take your investment and like create the robot, create the cafe, and you now are entitled to a share of its revenue proportional to what you put in. So that's one DePIN I'm really excited to see. I met the founders at Consensus, and they're really smart dudes. I'm really excited to see where that goes, because I know robots are like all the rage in Japan right now. And I've seen the AI robots, the Optimus bots at Tesla, serving the drinks, and I was like, oh my god, that's Ex Machina. I was like, holy crap. So I'm really excited for that one. I'm not sure what any like kind of tentative dates there are for that, but just definitely keep an eye on it. The other one is FarmScent, which I actually just talked to Yog, the founder, on my podcast yesterday. And very interesting guy, very interesting idea. But what FarmScent's trying to do is they're trying to revolutionize the supply chain between farmers and businesses. So they've noticed an issue where farmers in the world globally are just being completely shafted, completely screwed over on their revenue. Farmers make such a small amount of money for all of their efforts, for all the food they cultivate for us, because all the middlemen in between them and the businesses take a lot of the revenue. They take a lot of the profit share, and get them terrible pricing and whatnot. The market's kind of a whole mess for them in terms of quality of the food, as well as the price that the food's being sold. So FarmScent said, hey, why don't we just use the blockchain? We'll essentially streamline the entire process and create a marketplace for farmers and businesses to interact peer to peer. And so now businesses and farmers can use their service, their blockchain, and go, hey, this business wants to buy my carrots for $5 a pound, as opposed to this other business that wants to buy it for $7. I'm going to go with the $7 one over here because it's somewhat closer to. They'll work out the shipment arrangement, but essentially it gets rid of a lot of the middlemen, thus increasing revenue for the farmers, as well as increasing the quality of your food and kind of tracking where it's coming from. Because this is where the DePIN part comes in for FarmScent. They're going to implement these IoT devices that investors like you and we can purchase. We can like kind of like a DABA device, like we purchase like a thermostat for a cooler for this food that's being transported from the farmer to the business, and that is all maintained by a third party, but in exchange we are rewarded revenue from the sale, from the commission that the blockchain is generating based on the sale from the farmer to the business, if that makes sense. So we kickstart this whole entire thing by, instead of buying Wi-Fi routers with DABA network, we're buying, IoT devices that ensure the quality of our food, tracking it from every moment, from its inception all the way to the business you're buying it from. So eventually down the road, the idea is that there'll be a QR code on your bananas that you're buying. You can scan it and it will send you to the FarmScent blockchain, and you can look at everything. You can look at what temperature it's been held at consistently. It's all verifiable on chain, like thanks to these IoT devices as well as, the blockchain. So that's one I'm really excited about, because I feel like the revenue from that, just like getting involved in revenue share with farmers, as well as benefiting them, like it makes me feel good, but also I can make money on it. So I like those opportunities where I feel good and I'm making passive revenue. So those are two I'm looking at very closely.
Cool. Spell the farm one for me.
FARMSENT, FarmScent.
Okay.
And then Ex Machina is just it's X, the letter X with MAQUINA.
Yeah, I know that they spell theirs a little bit funny.
Yeah, it's not like the movie.
Compared, yeah. And hopefully it doesn't end up like the movie as well.
It's serving you coffee and just like locks you in the cafe. You're like, oh no.
Forever. To start to death. So you mentioned both of those are being launched on Peak?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Well, I want to talk about Peak for just a minute here because I'm Jazz on Peak. I invested early in Peak. What is Peak? Why are you excited about it?
I'm excited about Peak because I've always been kind of, I talked on a space about this recently with someone, and I've always been kind of the app chain thesis person where I feel like in the future, instead of all of these different chains, like you're still going to have a ton of different blockchains, but you're going to have app-specific chains. You're going to have chains for specific things instead of generalized things like Ethereum and Solana, which will still exist. Those things have a place in the economy, but for things like DePINs or like even tokenized assets, you're going to have very particular places they're going to go because that chain caters to them. And Peak is just one of those chains where you have, ultra high fast TPS. You have this kind of support system underlying with Peak in the foundation that's building Peak. That's there to help your DePIN project succeed, as well as with Crest Network, the Canary network that they have, being able to test your DePIN out, your idea out with real world data and see, oh, this thing is feasible and can work. And then going from that test net and seamlessly transitioning to the Peak mainnet to, launch and begin your journey.
Yeah. I am a huge fan of the idea of having specific blockchains for specific things. Not to knock any of the generalist, blockchains, but you can't expect, Ethereum Foundation or Solana to bend over backwards to make changes to their blockchain to cater to one specific niche or sector like DePIN. Whereas you can have the expectation of Peak because they are laser focused just on DePIN. It just makes total sense.
Yeah.
I'm Jazz on that one. Any idea? I haven't been watching it super closely. Any idea when that one actually launches?
It's supposed to be 2 weeks ago, two or 3 weeks ago, as far as I know. It was supposed to be the week of September 23rd, I believe they were aiming for. Then that got pushed back, of course. And I already talked to a lot of the guys at Silencio about it, and they're just like, come on, man. Please, we want to launch. So I believe they're slating it for Q4, late Q4. So I'm probably expecting a Christmas launch or something. So hopefully Christmas comes early. And we get that Peak network and all those juicy Peak tokens and rewards.
Yes, I like that. Yeah, lots of folks have been delaying TGEs and stuff because people want to happen right at the beginning or into the bull run instead of in the dead zone before that happens. But the market is heating up quite a bit, so maybe we're getting right to the good zone to start dropping some blockchains, which would be great.
I hope so. I mean, we're already seeing DePIN become a massive kind of centerpiece on Solana even. Like we mentioned Solana earlier, and I know there's lots of DePINs, including Daba Network, building on Solana. And for good reason, it's a good chain. It's very fast. You can kind of get the job done with it. Great UI, kind of good support structure there. But in my mind, you're going to have a lot of those DePINs start flocking to chains like Peak or at least being compatible with them, because it just, again, makes way too much sense. Why wouldn't you go somewhere where you have all the support you need? You have a chain that's catered to every need that you have in a blockchain for your DePIN, to make it so that it's completely abstracted away from everything. I don't have to go on chain to use certain DePINs. I don't want to go on chain to use certain DePINs. That's why I love Silencio's recent new app too. The fact that it's all built into the app. You don't have to leave. That's why I like it so much. I don't have to download a MetaMask or a Phantom Wallet. Once you start making people do that, they get the eyes glazing. They roll. They're like, oh, geez, dude, this guy again talking about his MetaMask, his Fox wallet. What does he want me to do? I'm not downloading that thing, dude. I kind of crack this joke in spaces sometimes. You're not going to get the blue collar worker in South Georgia who works at a manufacturing plant to download MetaMask. It's just never going to happen. You might be able to get them to download an app like Nadix or an app like Silencio, and that's about as far as they go. But when you start mentioning seed phrases, they go, what?
Yeah. Crypto has got to become seamless. A lot of the crypto magic stuff has got to be hidden in the background. You've got to be able to use these apps and they be, crypto enabled apps, and you don't even realize they are crypto enabled. You just get paid or you utilize whatever functionality you want. And that's it's all seamless. It all makes sense. That's how we're going to onboard those people, or your mom or your grandma or anybody who's just not crypto native, not even internet native, not technology savvy. I got to make it as simple as possible.
I've told my family this. I was like, hey, listen, all the dollars are going to be tokenized. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, your dollars are all going to be stable coins eventually. And they didn't understand. And I was like, well, because stable coins are a more efficient dollar. They settle quicker. They're cheaper to transact with, so eventually everything will be on chain. You just won't know it. And that's the beautiful thing.
Yeah. And what I tell everybody is, you can complain till you're blue in the face about how hard this stuff is and, MetaMask this, seed phrase that.
Yeah.
But when that's no longer a thing, when it's so easy for anyone to use, lots of the upside will be gone. So as an enthusiast, as someone who's in this space now, put up with all that stuff, put up with all the shit you have to deal with now, and enjoy the ride as we fly to the moon together, maybe even to Mars, wherever we want to go.
I'm on your rocket ship, Andy, so I'm excited.
Come on board. Everyone's welcome.
Captain Andy.
So let's finish this thing out. And if somebody's listening to this like everything you need to know about DePIN podcast we just did, and they're picking up what you're laying down, William. They're like, I like the idea behind this. I want to get involved. Where do they start? Like, how can they just take the first few baby steps into the world of DePIN and start exploring it?
Honestly, if you're really just going to take baby steps and start exploring it, I would look into downloading a software DePIN, kind of like Silencio, because it's, again, so seamless, easy to kind of put on your phone, or changing your phone plan and going on Helium Mobile. Because it's just cheaper to utilize. It's the same exact phone plan that you probably have already. Just you're going to be saving way more money. And then what you're going to do is you're going to turn the mapping function on within the app and start collecting those passive mobile rewards. So those are the two main ways I do it, just because the phone one obviously is a bit more like, hey, I have to cancel a phone plan to do all this. So there's a bit more work there. But in terms of like Silencio, it's a very tiptoe step in, because you're like, wait a minute, all I got to do is turn this app on. This is nice, and it's kind of gamified to make it fun and whatnot. So I feel like that's probably the safest way to go about it, and the easiest way to go about it, as opposed to buying a device and installing it and setting it up. And we talked about Demo and whatnot and Hivemapper, and those aren't as much of a headache as some of the things like the actual hotspots that Helium has, as well as the geode net miners and whatnot. So I would say start off with something like a Silencio or even a Nodal network. Nodal network's not bad. Very passive in the background, and just go from there. Start exploring from there and see if you like it.
Yeah, I like that. That's great advice. And educate yourself by subscribing to the DePIN Daily podcast, which I will link down below. William, this was a lot of fun. I love this topic. I love DePIN. We'll have to do this again sometime and talk about all new DePINs that we're excited about and stuff. Thanks for being here.
No, thank you, Andy. It was a pleasure, man.
And thank you for listening in. If you are listening in, I will see you in the next episode.